Life of love. Life of love. With Joy Hilson.
Welcome, dear friends, to another episode of Life of Love. We're here in a weekly podcast to share the magic of living your life of love. And we have special guests each week to share their magic and their secrets of how they center in their life of love. This week, Martin Salama is our special guest, and I'd love to welcome him. He's a mindset coach, and he's known as the architect of the Warrior's Life Code. And he likes to share the ability to live an incredibly full life every day. So he's going to talk about the acronym LIFE. I just botched it, but
it's all good.
Martin, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to hear your message today.
Oh, thank you, Julie. I'm so excited to be here with you. Just from our few minutes of before we got going, we connected. We have the same type of energy. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, just joy. Just so much to share, so much to be excited about. We're here in a new year and everyone's looking to just live their best life. So I'm just super committed to sharing anything that can help the people on their journey. So thank you for being part of this and in the field. I'm honored to have you as a guest.
Well, thank you for having me.
We know that experience is the best teacher. Could you give us some insight as to how you learn to live a life incredibly full?
But that it's a little bit of a loaded question because I kind of have to go back to the beginning because it's not something that I came up with when I was a child and lived that way my whole life. I'd like to think I did, but I didn't. So it started when I was about 10 years old, where I had a tragedy in my life, which set me on a path for the next 40 years to be in one specific way. And it was really me putting on a mask and not recognizing that I had this mask on for 40 years. So when I was 10 years old, I was the first boy after four girls. And then I had a brother 5 years younger than me. And so I was so excited when Michael came along because here I am. I have my partner in crime, the guy that I'm going to go through life with, and we're going to set the world on fire. And when I was 10 and he was 5, he was killed by a school bus. And it rocked my life, as you can imagine. And, it made us all, my whole family was distraught, especially my parents. There's nothing worse than losing a child. Nothing worse. That's the greatest tragedy I feel that you can have is losing a child. Mm-hmm. So I looked at that at 10 years old and I told myself a story. And that story was, it's my job to make sure that my parents never feel that kind of sadness again or any kind of sadness. So at that moment, I could look back now and say that I became a people pleaser, because it was my job to make sure that my parents were happy. I would do whatever they thought I needed to do in my life. They became the catalyst for whatever I was going to do. Oh, I think about doing this. No, that's not you. You go into business with your father. You do this or whatever. And I did that. And I became a people pleaser. But what came with that were a few other things. Number one, I took things personally. Number two, I was a control freak. And the worst of all, I had a very short temper, which you could understand. As somebody who's a people pleaser, you want to make sure that everything's going the way you want it to go. And when it's not, you take it personally. And when that happens, you start to lose your temper and you take it out on everybody. And so I became that. And then as I got married, I became more of a people pleaser, trying to please my wife, trying to please my family, my parents. As I went on, trying to please my children, everybody. And it took me 40 years and going through a few other what I call defining moments, like when I was 10 years old, to recognize that those things weren't serving me. And it took things like going through losing everything in 2008 when the financial world fell apart. I was a victim of that as well, because my wife and I were working on a project for 5 years to build a multi-million-dollar health club in New Jersey. And it all started one day when she came to me. She said, well, you just closed a business. You're looking for something to do. Let's open up a tennis center. I can't find any place to play tennis. I'm like, okay, let me make you happy. Then deep and down, I'm looking now, that's really what I was saying is, okay, it's another way of me people pleasing. So we started on this 5-year journey to build and what started out as let's find a tennis center. The feasibility studies were like, no, you need to do much more than that if you're going to make money. And what started as a 8 court tennis center turned into over 100,000 square foot tennis, health club, everything, $15 million project. And over the years, we put the money in to get it going, to pay for the architecture, the engineering, go through all of these feasibility studies, go through the state and the city, and get all their approvals. Now, if we got approved in 2006 or 2007 and went to the bank, they would have been like, yeah, here's all the money you need. They were in that mode of, we'll figure it out. We'll give you all the money you want. As fate would have it, we would do it in 2008. And we go to the bank in the summer of 2008, and they go, yeah, we're not lending right now. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You told me you'll be there for me. Okay, well, we're not. A month later, Bernie Madoff, subprime loans, the entire financial world crashes, as did I. Overnight, I was broke. I lost every penny I had, and you can imagine how I was feeling. I wasn't in a very good place, and I wasn't living incredibly full every day at that moment.
Right.
But it was a tough time.
Wow.
And it took me about a year to pick myself up and say, okay, what am I going to do now? That's how tough it was. I'd put in 5 years and lost everything as a result. I was afraid to even get out of bed for a while. But I did. And after about a year of soul searching and a little bit of therapy as well, which helped me to recognize that, some things I can't control, like what happened to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, what do I want to do now? I said, I think I want to go a different path. I don't want to be an entrepreneur anymore. I don't want to be a businessman. But what do I do want to do? Well, I looked over my life and I realized one of the things I picked up from my parents that was a wonderful thing was they were very community oriented. They were always leaders in our community. As a matter of fact, about a year after my brother passed away, my mother started a support group, a bereavement group for women who lost their children.
Aww.
And she did that for over 40 years. I mean, thank God she's still alive, but the last 10 years have been not so great, especially through COVID. Mm-hmm. But she started this group for other women who lost children so that they had each other to talk to. Because nobody could say to them, I know how you feel. Because they didn't know how they felt. She did. And over the years, women have come to me and said, your mother has been a beautiful light in the darkness that I was feeling. Because I was lost. I lost my child. I lost my baby. And here was a woman and other women who understood that. So I was always community minded. My father started some fantastic things in our little community. And I did that too. I was the founder and first president of the first synagogue in Eatontown, New Jersey, which now has over 400 families. I'm not part of it anymore, but it's a beautiful thing.
Nice.
And I look back and I realized being involved in the community events as a leader, lots of times people would come and say, I don't know what I can do here. I was like, come on in, we'll help you. And I would guide them to show them their potential. I was a life coach and I didn't even know
You're an activator, yes. You're just like, come on in. I got you.
Yep.
I got you. There's a place. Everyone has a purpose. We'll just figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it came out. I was like, oh, maybe I'll become a life coach. So just when I thought I had everything going great, it was my 24th wedding anniversary. And my wife says to me, I'm done. I want a divorce. And I'm like, there are 364 other days in the year for you to tell me this. I wish I said that. Or I wish I said I didn't buy you anything like that for our anniversary. But you can imagine how I felt. I was, again, dejected. The one person I thought that I can count on, that I thought I loved and loved me, didn't love who I was anymore. And maybe it's because I changed, she changed, whatever. I'm not looking to blame her.
Right.
But I took that opportunity and I said, you know what? God's sending me a message here. You're going into life coaching? Why don't you start with yourself first? So I said, okay. And when I was going in, they gave us a list of books to read. And they said, read 2 or 3 of them. And one of them was a book that literally changed my life. It's called The 4 Agreements. You ever read that book?
No.
Okay.
The 4 Agreements.
It talks about 4 agreements. And one that changed my life, they all did, but the one that really had the main impact was the second agreement. Don't take anything personally. which is what I've been doing my entire life.
Well,
But I was
you
open.
made a pact, you as a child, and you're not the only one. We make these agreements. We make these absolute statements as children when experiences happen that we're going to make a difference. We're going to change things. We're going to do better. And we make these judgments based on a limited perspective, right?
Right.
And so anything that went against your ability to protect, insulate, make others happy, you were pushing away. So you weren't letting in the joy that you could. You weren't filling your bucket. You were just constantly emptying it, being a conduit for everyone else's stuff. And it's not personal. It's everybody's covenants they make to themselves. You know, it's their life path. So it's not personal. It's their journey.
Yeah,
it's a tough one because it does, you know, when we perceive them doing us wrong, our ego steps in, we get protective, you know, all these things get set off. Yeah. And it's human nature. So that agreement number 2, don't take things personally. It's a tough one. You have to really go through it and see the other way to change it. Because if you don't see it it
didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight. But it was the light that I needed at that moment to tell me you're allowed to change. You don't have to stay who you were. And when I was going through life coach training, I realized that the last 20, 30, 40 years of my life, I was a people pleaser, pleasing nobody. Nobody was happy.
Nobody's happy.
And at the end of the day, least of all me. You know what? So I looked back and I said, well, I was rationalizing all the time that what I was doing was okay because it was for the greater good. And you know what I came up with? Mm-hmm. I came up with the word rationalize is really 2 words that I've trademarked to mean rational lies.
Nice.
You lie to yourself that it's rational to do things that you know you shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And
Isn't that great?
I mean, Martin, tell me your perspective on this because it's sort of, I think we get lost a little bit, and maybe we can just talk about this a little. I think that living in service gets misconstrued. And, you know, you say, oh, I want to serve. And how can I best serve? I'm going to have a business that's going to serve. I'm going to be a parent that serves my family the best. But I think it's the way you look at that service. And to not get stuck in that living for others' affirmation or being self-deprived is you figure out the service that brings you joy, the way you contribute that gives back to you. It's a paradigm shift because we've gotten programmed.
Right. That if you serve in that way, you're being selfish.
Right.
When it's not, it's really selfless and it's self-love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think I made a big shift in my coaching business when I changed my mindset from I want to make millions of dollars to I want to help millions of people with what I found works for me because I've changed my mindset. So I think that answers that question about that a little bit.
Oh, totally. It's beautiful. It's to trust that as people, we're here to love. And that's what it comes down to life of love to me is like, we're here to love. And part of loving is showing up as your best self, not just showing up as a reflection of whatever someone else needs.
Right.
And
exactly.
It's not all gooey and all butterflies and roses. Sometimes it's like standing up for what you believe in, what you know is important to you. And it might not be received. You might not be popular, but we're all here to reflect on things that need to be activated and being sensitive and just knowing when someone's upset is part of your gift. But then you have to realize that's my gift. I'm not going to use it to demean myself. I'm going to use it to build myself up.
Right.
Because that helps others.
That was the biggest problem for me is that if somebody was upset, I automatically took it on my shoulders, took it personally, figured out I had to fix it for them and without recognizing, number one, is it about me or is it about them? And they're just projecting it on me.
Right.
So that was part of my growth there too.
Yeah. And as they say, when you're a high vibration, people come to you with their problems. So you have to rise up to that situation. It's like it's in another level of your, they say, ascension. It's ascension symptom is when you're feeling overwhelmed by other people. That's your call. When you're that overwhelmed person, that's your call to, okay, what am I learning from this? How am I going to grow? How am I going to not take this on? And there's always a strength. Like,
yep, 100%.
God doesn't give us more than we can handle.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. But when you're in the depth of it, you don't think that way. You're like, why is everything happening to me? But I found that at that low point, when I asked that question, the answer came back to me is that you need to recognize that it's happening to you because of the vibrations of negativity and complaining that you're giving out. If you change that vibration, it's no longer happening to you. It can happen for you. Mm-hmm. If you change complaining to appreciating and saying, I wake up every morning and I write down 3 things in a gratitude journal that I'm thankful for that day. And at night also. And then I pray. And then I say my mantra, I live incredibly full every day. Because that sets me up for success, whatever it looks like, and opportunities in the day. And I know there's people out there saying, yeah, it's not that simple. It's not. But it's a muscle memory thing. You've got to work that muscle for it to start working for you.
That's beautiful. And it's simple to do that, but not always easy.
No. Exactly right.
Oh, so that is so LIFE is live
incredibly
full
every day.
Every day.
So, and that came to me. So here I am. I became a coach. And originally I was a divorce recovery coach. I wonder why.
Well, that's how my leading question was. Life's experiences gives us these chances to find out. Like, it's a quest. Like, what am I supposed to learn here? So, yeah, that whole you said it was your 23rd wedding anniversary?
24th. We were actually married for officially 25 years by the time we got divorced. So I could say I was married for 25 years. Big deal.
And you had how many kids?
4 kids.
You had 4 kids. So they were probably leaving the house?
A couple of them had already left. One was married. One was in college and got married a few years later. The other 2 are still somehow single, but it's all good.
When you were a relationship coach, a divorce coach, not every relationship ends in divorce. Yeah. What am I talking about? I think every relationship has moments where you're like, I'm divorcing that part of how I showed up, and I'm going to show up as a different way. And I'm not for or against divorce. Like, things just happen, and sometimes you need the door slammed in your face to see that there's another door.
Right. One of the things that came through going through life coaching, and you know what? God has a sense of humor, because when I finished the first weekend of coach training, and for me, it took almost a year. I went to a school that took a while to get your training. Okay. And after that first weekend, you peer coach and you're peer coached with somebody else from the class. Of all the people in the room, my peer coach was a woman who had just finished getting divorced. And I was going through the divorce process. So God has a sense of humor. Okay, so you're going to do this? Well, let me give you somebody who you need to have in your life right now. But having her there was unbelievable, because she could relate to what I was going through. Because I didn't want to get divorced. I was still not wanting to get divorced. I didn't want to leave the house. We lived in the same house under the same roof for like 7 or 8 months before my family said, get the heck out of there already. They forced me out of the house. My sisters, come back to Brooklyn.
Oh, they're like, you're never going to meet someone new if you're still living there.
And she doesn't want you there. But I was afraid. I was afraid I was going to lose my children. I was afraid I was going to lose my connections and all that. So having her as my peer coach as I was moving out I cried. I cried for weeks. And guys, it's okay to cry, just so you know.
That's a
if you have any money.
detox. I mean, it's a complete, tears are powerful. There's a tribe in South America that actually stores tears. They put them in little bottles because they're so precious that, you loved something so much that you could cry, or you had this experience that was so intense that brought you to tears.
Yeah.
Those tears are sacred, and we've lost that. We've we're always showing up and we're always presenting, but those tears are
right. As a matter of fact, are you a Harry Potter fan?
not huge. I read part of the books and some of the movies. Them
where they take the tears from somebody and put them into this bowl called a pensieve, and then you can see their memories.
Oh,
right. So the tears store when you're crying. It takes your memories. It stores them for you. And in Harry Potter world, you put them into little tubes, and when you need to revisit them, you can watch them again and see how you were going through there. It's an interesting little thing I just came up with.
That's why it just came to you. Love that.
Yeah. So here I am. I'm a divorce recovery coach, and I was doing okay. I was liking life. I was just okay because I was still trying to put my life back together financially. I was working in a dead-end job. I was coaching, but I stopped letting myself be coached, and I had let myself get to the heaviest I ever was in my life because I was living in New York away from my family. I was using every excuse in the world. And finally, one day I looked in the mirror. I was the heaviest I ever was. And I go, what the heck are you doing? You got to change. And I started working out. I found a way to work out and still be able to get to work by doing home videos, like T25, 30-minute video, and still get to work. And in 9 months, I lost 65 pounds.
Wow.
But I was also reading better, and I was letting myself be coached. And all those things allowed me to continue my journey. And during that time, I shifted from self-conscious to self-aware. And I actually talk about it in my book, which is coming out in my coaching course. And I just came out with this, which is called a Warrior to Warrior card
Warrior
deck.
to Warrior. I love cards. It's so much fun to just flip through and just ask the universe, what do I need to see today? And I think that's what you're getting at, from warriors to warriors.
Right. So one of the cards has self-aware versus self-conscious. And it talks about self-conscious comes from a place of negative energy, guilt, conflict, doubt. Self-conscious is more outward directed. It's being more concerned about what others are thinking of you and how the situation is going to affect you. You probably react to uncomfortable situations instead of respond. Self-awareness comes from a place of positive energy, acceptance, contentment, and self-assuredness. Self-awareness is more inward-facing. You have an accurate and realistic understanding of how you are responding to situations and how you feel about things. And then it goes a little further on each one of them. But you see the difference there?
Yeah, one's accepting. You're accepting and surrendering to the feeling instead of judging or worrying about how it projects. And it takes a lot of work to get there. Believe me, I know, because you have to be like, I'm perfect. I am perfect in every cell of my body. Everything I feel is valid. Everything I feel is important. And it's a different paradigm to come at yourself with that kind of acceptance and be like, I'm here for you. I love you. What's going on?
Right, exactly. And saying that to yourself, I love myself. What's going on? and having coaches around you, it makes it that much easier to get through the process. And I really coach on people on shifting their mindset from lack to abundance. And the lack comes from complaining, and it comes from worry, and it comes from all of those things that are holding you back and saying, I can't. You know what? You're right. You can't. But if you change your mindset to I can or how can I, it becomes a different thing. It used to be that I can't was 50% of my vocabulary. Now it's maybe 1%. And everything that comes my way, I'm like, okay, let's figure out how we can make this work.
This is I'm climbing uphill. I'm on a slippery slope. Things aren't going my way, but what's the possibility? That's a totally different thing than, oh my gosh, this is, it's just like, if you get to that low vibration, And people, you can pick up the Hawkins scale of emotions and your empowerment. Look it up. This is real stuff. Emotions can bring in better or it can bring in worse. And you can decide if you're reacting, you're responding.
The world is as you see it. So if you want to see it as problems and downtrodden and not good for anything, that's what you're going to find. But if you see it as beautiful and opportunistic and full of love and abundance, that's what you're going to find as well. And there's going to be times where you're going to slip. We all do. But that doesn't mean you're back to square one.
Yep, that keeps coming up, Martin. It keeps coming up. We're on this spiral, right? And we spiral. We get to the highest point, and then we slip back down, and it's okay to slip back down. We're human. We're here to slip. It's okay.
A few weeks ago, I did a Facebook live stream on the enemy is always on the attack. No matter what you're doing, as focused as you can be, just when you think you got everything going, something's going to come to knock you down. And then it's the universe sending you a message to say, are you on the right path? Because if you let it knock you down, then you're saying, okay, I give up. But if you say, okay, I'm going to get up and maybe do a little deke around it, like in football, like, okay, I'm going to miss the ball. I'm going to miss the tackler. I'm going to go the other way and just keep going. It's really it's God testing you if you're on the right path.
Right, and God wants us to show up with as much love as possible, and so hating your enemies or beating yourself up, you're not passing the test, so you're going to get the test again. God, like you said, He has a sense of humor. He's going to throw the same situation at you over and over until you decide to rise.
Right, exactly. So as a result of all this stuff of me changing and losing the weight and finding that self-awareness, one day I'm ADHD. So can you imagine I would meditate? Could you imagine a guy on ADHD meditating? I'd be like this, when is it going to be over? And I'd be doing the one with the guy with the calming voice headspace telling me what to do. And I still had 10 minutes. But one day I had this download of information that I was loving my life. I loved what I had created for myself and manifested. And I wanted to show other people how to do that. So I finished my meditation. I wrote for 2 hours. And out of that came the acronym, live incredibly full every day, enjoy life.
It's awesome. I think that's a huge message. Like everyone's saying, oh, get quiet, meditate, you'll hear messages from your soul. Some people can't do that. And that's why like your cards would be great for someone with ADHD because you can sort of flip through them and, ask the universe for the top 3. And that's huge. And it's just that moment of being quiet and saying, what do I need to find out here? Like, I'm curious, like, tell me what's next, what can I focus on today?
Here's the interesting thing. So many people will have something come to them and think it's just a coincidence and do it as a one-off. No, the magic is there. The universe is sending you the message. Are you ready to hear it or are you ready to just let it say it's not really anything?
Okay, so here's the synchronicity of our conversation. I have always wanted to build a tennis center. My boys play tennis. My whole family plays tennis. The weather gets really bad. I've looked into land. I have like people who could run it. Like I've run through the thing and I know it's impossible to make money at a tennis center. The lighting, the construction, everything is just like, So the only way I've come to the realization I'd have to win the lottery.
If you want, I'll find somewhere in here the plans I had to build.
Martin.
I'm kidding. I don't have them anymore.
That's hilarious. Well, yeah. So, I mean, you're right. You have to have all these ancillaries. You have to rent out an event center.
You totally connected. Like, you're telling myself, oh my God, I can't believe he's talking about this.
Right. And it's just so amazing. It's just so amazing that came around.
I was never a good tennis player. But I was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And I went to a guy to do a feasibility study, and he said to me, if you're only building tennis, stop now. And that should have been a message for me to stop. But he said, do this and this and this and this and build a multi-million-dollar health club. And then you can have the tennis as something that you can make money with
there.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
It had everything. It had a full gym. It had a spa. It had a basketball court. It was over 100,000 square feet.
Yeah.
It was going to be, it would have been. But to tell you the truth, looking back now, I wouldn't change a thing because I would not be where I am today, which is 2 years after I started figuring the life thing part of it, and I was dating, I met a woman. And that woman was checking all the boxes that I needed in my life at that moment. And I realized that in my first marriage, I was codependent. We were codependently, our values were never aligned, and I never would have understood it if I didn't go through coaching. And this woman hit them all. And I'm happy to say we're coming up on almost 5 years being married. I'm very excited about that. And I get excited every day. I wake up and look and say, what the heck did I do to have this happen to me in a good way?
So great.
God, what did I do to be blessed with this woman and her children and her family in my life?
Right. I have a friend who's going through a hard time, and maybe she'll listen to this and get inspired. I mean, things just get turned upside down, but that doesn't mean it's for the worse. A lot of times there's, like you said, there's that gift, there's that thing that,
right.
I always think of that. It's a meme on the internet where Jesus is holding a huge teddy bear behind his back. Have you seen this one? And there's a little girl holding this little tiny teddy bear, and she's holding on to it. And Jesus behind his back has this huge teddy bear, and it says, sometimes you just have to let go to get the bigger, Jesus has something better for you. And,
nice.
That's
right. I got you. Yeah, no, I got it. Very interesting. So yeah, I could easily say I know what precipitated me being able to have those things in my life, because I wanted them, and I put myself into a situation of being open to opportunities. So when a woman calls me and says, "Martin, I got somebody I want you to date," and I go, "Oh, really? Who are you? I know you for 40 years, and now you're telling me you're my matchmaker? What am I, in Fiddler on the Roof?" She goes, "No, I'm your matchmaker." And she would send me dates, and we'd go out, and I'd like, "No, this one's not right." And she was one of my ex-wife's friends when we were single 40 years, 25, 30 years earlier. And now she got married, she got divorced and married, a good close friend of mine, and I got married again. And we go out 2-3 times a year, and we go, look at where we are in our lives. But if Kelly didn't call me that day, I wouldn't be with Sarita now.
Right. And you were open that, okay, this is something, it may or may not be, but you don't have to put a label on things. You just put yourself there.
And another one of the things out of the 4 agreements is don't have any expectations. Make no assumptions. Mm-hmm. So I would go out on dates, and they'd say, my friends would say, "Well, what are you expecting?" I'd say nothing. I have no expectations, because if I have high expectations, I'm going to be disappointed. And if I have low expectations, I'm going to be disappointed. So I go in with no expectations.
There's no pressure. Just getting to know somebody. You're getting to know yourself through that person,
Exactly.
Well, I really appreciate this time you spent with us. And I will put a link to your offerings. You have a website with downloads, and your book is going to get ready to come out. So maybe by the time this airs, your book will be available, and then we can share that too. Yep.
Fantastic. So it's an easy site. It's called connectwithmartin.com.
And your YouTube channel with the Cooking with Martin.
Yeah. You can, if you really want to have some fun, go to YouTube, put in Martin Salama, and you'll get a lot of kick out of watching me cook. I'm a good cook, but I have some fun in the kitchen as well.
Nice. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just can't wait to share this with the audience. And thanks for sharing so eloquently your story. And I know it's moving and it's beautiful. And I'm happy to be on the earth with you right now.
Thank you. I feel the same way, Julie.
Martin, all the best.
You too.